Welcome everyone to Legion Gaming. I'm your host Donnie, and today I'm joined by my co-host as always, Deuce.
Hello everyone.
Deuce, how are you this Saturday afternoon upon which we're recording?
Oh, I am doing great. I am excited for this topic. We've had some good back-to-back episodes here, just like series near and dear to our hearts. And this one is now, I guess, more of a movie series near and dear to my heart, but I love the games.
Yeah, this is great because last week we covered, not last week, excuse me. In our most recent episode, we covered one of my favorite series and just games in general, Street Fighter 2. And today we're covering the sort of first batch of 007 James Bond games, which, Deucey, you are a huge James Bond fan. I am less so, even though I really like James Bond, but you're like the sort of encyclopedia to my Cliff Notes version, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
All thanks to Goldeneye for the N64. That just launched me into the movie career, I guess, of James Bond. And yeah, I couldn't get enough. Luckily, my dad was a big fan, so he had all the movies beforehand when I was growing up. And then I just started popping those in one by one on VHS, of all things.
Yeah, when the collections were massive, when you had like 15, 20 movies or where it was on a VHS set. Usually you had get them shipped in from like a magazine or whatever the case, but it's always fun when, like, I remember going to your house, seeing like the different VHS collections that your parents had, like whether it was James Bond or Star Trek with your mom. There was always like shelf space dedicated to those. It was really great. Yeah. So it's going to be a really fun episode because there are a lot of James Bond games, and it's interesting for me because, at least from my perspective, I always feel like, there's a couple like on the 16-bit era, and then we got into GoldenEye, which really kicked off a ton more James Bond games, but there's actually quite a few that we just never heard of or got to play for a bunch of reasons we'll cover. Like, there's a lot in the 80s that we just didn't know about, at least.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is, we're going to have to break this up into probably two parts, and the first part of this one is going to be just a big history lesson for both of us, because there was a lot of games that I was not even aware of, because I didn't even think about computers until about 95, 96.
Yeah, so those, we'll kind of briefly go over those, but that's really, like you said, sort of like a history bit from like 1982 to 1990. And then like really the back half of our section there is going to be more, we're probably speaking more to, because we're more familiar with those games just naturally. So we're going to cover basically up until the year 2000 or so, somewhere around there. And then we're going to cover GoldenEye just a little bit in this episode, because in a few weeks we're inviting our friend Vito, the 8-Bit Barrister, and he's going to join us for a special GoldenEye episode that's totally about GoldenEye, which has been a long time coming. It's one of our favorite games, and Deuce, that's like one of your probably top 5 of all time easily, I would say.
We should really open it up to a lot of our guests, because, GoldenEye seems to be huge for everybody we've talked to.
Yeah, I think anyone from our generation, GoldenEye is easily an influence.
Whether you even owned an N64 or not, everybody has played GoldenEye.
Yeah, exactly. In some form or fashion, you knew about GoldenEye and you played it. So it's going to be fun. Like Deucey said, we're going to do a couple of parts with the sort of anthologizing of the games. The second part will cover a lot of the PS2, Xbox to current era, which is a lot of fun because there's a lot of good games in there. I would say that's like the better half, really. Like,
there's underrated gems.
There are, yeah.
And there's some ones that are like, okay, fine.
Yeah, exactly. And even the worst ones are not as bad as some of the ones we'll talk about today.
Yeah, so. That is true.
So it'll be a fun series of episodes. So hopefully you'll listen to all 3 of them and enjoy. But before we get to all the good stuff and everything 007, Deucey, what have you been playing?
Everything Star Wars, apparently.
I could tell. That's really funny. Yeah.
I even want to get back into the, what was it, Dark Forces? I want to get back into that remaster, but I did not. I, in fact, finished Jedi Survivor already from the last time we talked about it, and it was, like you said, it was about 45 hours of gameplay time.
That's what I expected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was just such a quick playthrough. It did not feel like 45 hours, because when I was available to play a game, that was all I played. And it just breezed right through. And then right after that, I started Star Wars Outlaws, because it was on sale. It was like 50% off.
I was wondering if you had bought it, because we had been talking about it. And I know, like Jedi Survivor, you played on PS Plus, and I know Outlaws hasn't hit any of the subscription services yet. So I was like, oh, you just went out and bought it. That's great.
Yeah,
it's very worthwhile.
Yeah, I was like, oh, and it really, because I had gotten back from my vacation, and all of a sudden it said there's only like 2 days left for this sale. I was like, okay, well, you twisted my arm.
Yeah,
but yeah, Outlaws is also freaking great. But I'm pretty sure it's going to take me a lot longer than just the 45 hours Jedi because it already feels like it's been longer. I haven't even gotten off the first planet yet. I can fly around out there. The space battles are pretty awesome, but I haven't gone anywhere else yet, and I know that it's going to open up and there's going to be a ton of stuff to do on other planets.
Yeah, I think I'm on the third planet right now, and that's right before I stopped because of the stuff I've played. But I really have been enjoying it because it's like I talked about, I think it was in our last episode, maybe the one before that, I forgot what it was, but with Ubisoft games, you know what you're getting into if you're playing them. And if you enjoy that format, like for me, I don't enjoy every Ubisoft open world game. It really depends on the theme. Like I really loved Far Cry 4 and 5 and 3 to an extent, but I didn't like 6 at all. Like none of the themes hooked me and it was just an overly massive world. But then Outlaws, you have a Star Wars theme and like you play essentially a smuggler sort of recruiting people for this big heist. So it's very different than using like force powers and being like a Jedi.
Although I do miss the force powers.
I know. There's times where it's like you just want to go guns blazing. It's like, oh, that doesn't work here that well. Yeah.
I want to at least double jump.
Yeah, but it's a massive game. And I've tried my best to kind of collect as I go along, but some of the missions just take me elsewhere. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I have to go explore there. But it's huge.
I think what helps in this one so far, even though it's an Ubisoft game, is like not everything is put on your map at once. Because that usually deters me when there's like a huge map and then there's just tons of points to go to. And I get frozen with decisions. I'm like, I don't know where to go first. But in this one, you sort of unlock these clues about stuff you may or may not want to go pick up. And I'm like, it's like one at a time. And I'm like, okay, I will do that because this is all I have on my list right now. Or I could go do the story mission. But I really enjoy just the atmosphere of it. And like you said, being a smuggler is actually cooler than you'd think. Now they really need to sit down and do the bounty hunter game that they've always been talking about. That's like, get started and then canceled. But I feel like a bounty hunter is the third different type of Star Wars character that you could really do a good game about.
And they could totally make it work because I'm playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I've been absolutely loving because I just love the samurai theme and Japanese aesthetic. But imagine that format where it's like you're being hunted, with a bunch of different assassins or other bounty hunters, right? It would be so easy and seamless for Ubisoft to do it. I think it'd be really good.
One of the only things I did on Jedi Survivor after I beat it was I went back into it and finished off the bounty hunter side mission where there was like a whole tree of bounty hunters that you had to get clues about and then go out and find them. And that was really interesting too, because for one, I went back into the world and they actually have additional lines of dialogue put into the game for after you've beaten it. Like you suddenly get a new crew member. I don't want to spoil too much, but you get the new little crew member and there's like a whole bunch of stuff to talk to them about. And then also the characters that have been traveling with you will start saying things that reference what just happened in the story, even though the story is done. And then once you finish the bounty hunter side missions, you get a cool little Easter egg cameo too, which I was like, okay, this was kind of worth it. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to collect anymore. Let's move on to a different Star Wars world.
Yeah, I really would love to play through Jedi Survivor again because I did enjoy it and I played through when it came out. So I don't know what they've added since. I don't know if they've done anything like the stuff you're talking about with the post-credits or whatever. I don't know. But that was really one of my favorite games in a long time, especially from Star Wars, because I'm really critical about the movies, but I love the games. And Survivor was everything I wanted. I was sort of like a Metroidvania game. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
But Outlaw is also very good. Like I know there's a lot of, we always see the terrible discourse first online, and it's all just unfounded. Like it's all trash as far as I'm concerned, because this is a really, really great game. And for $25-$30 and you like Star Wars and open world games, there's really not much you can hate on here. It's a fun time.
Yeah. I mean, considering what we grew up on, this is just like what we've always kind of wanted.
Yeah, the scale is ridiculous. Like I'm playing it and it's insane how I'm always talking about like there's no load times, everything's seamless, right? And like you can get on your speeder bike, which goes really fast.
Yeah.
And you can explore pretty much wherever you want on these planets. And they're really massive, but not too massive, right? They're not like a chore to explore necessarily. And it's not like it feels like they're too massive. And it helps that they're different planets too, because that way you can obviously break them up.
Yeah, you actually get to look at different scenery and everything. I think what helps in this is that you do get a speeder bike like right off the bat.
Yeah.
It would be more of a slog if you had to walk everywhere.
It would be a nightmare because the world is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. For what I've been playing, I finally finished Avowed. I bought that on PC and I think it was like 45 hours at the end of it, so just short of your Jedi Survivor time, really. And I really, really enjoyed that game. it didn't do anything truly amazing, right? Like it didn't really blow up my expectations away or anything, but the story was really satisfying. There were some choices that I struggled with, which was surprising. Like I found myself sometimes, which I hate, where I'm just like sitting there for like 2 minutes, like,
oh yeah, what do I really
want to
do?
What could happen if I choose this way, right?
Do you ever, when you do those choices, do you do it based on you yourself or what you think the character would do?
Usually it's what I would do.
Okay.
But there's also times where I just want to go against the grain because I also believe like, if there's some authoritarian thing trying to take over, it's like, well, screw them. I don't want them to have any kind of power. So I just purposely go against them. But there's some things here where there's consequences that could lead to lost lives, right? So you also have to weigh that out. It's like, okay, well, I get what I want, but some people might have to die too,
I found that a lot of times I'll play a game and it'll be, I guess if it's first person, it'll definitely be what I want, like, because I'm the character. But if it's third person, kind of like in Mass Effect, I start to mold a separate Commander Shepard away from me so that I could go the evil route if I wanted to, or something like that.
Mass Effect made it easy for me to, because I made a conscious effort to go through as fully Paragon or fully, what was the other one?
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't remember. It's funny. I remember the evil one. Well, I thought Paragon was evil.
No, I thought Paragon was good.
All right, Paragon was good.
Yeah.
Whatever the evil one was, yeah. So I made an effort to go to do both playthroughs. But this one's like, I knew I was going to go through once, and it sucks because once you finish the game, you can't go back and sort of clean up, after the world. Like it just starts at the end boss fight, which kind of sucks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. So maybe they'll patch it. Like I know they're going to plan. I think they're doing a reveal for their roadmap soon or something. But I did a lot. Like I did as many side quests as I could find. The only stuff I didn't get is like some of the collectibles.
Are they? You said roadmap, so they're gonna have DLC for it.
I'm thinking so.
But like, yeah, then they would have to open it back up afterwards.
I think they have to, right? Yeah, because I would like to. Like, there's some things I do want to clean up. Like, there's some things I was so close to the end where I didn't want to go through and find these hidden treasures, which are actually really hidden. Like, you have to reference the photo they give you or the drawing.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah, it's super fun, but it's like, you have to actively look for those too. There's things like we have to collect these totems, which do give you bonus abilities, but they're also well hidden too. So there's certain things I didn't do like that. But I did like a lot of the other side quests, like pretty much, like I said, everything I could find. And I really enjoyed the end. It was a really, really solid game. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I wasn't sure I was going to get right away because it's Ubisoft and they always drop. And of course, all it took was Target to offer this really badass looking steelbook.
Oh yeah.
I was like, well, I'm just going to buy it. I mean, it's samurai and it's, it's Assassin's Creed Return to Form. And I've been really enjoying the hell of it. Like I've put in like, I don't know, 20 something hours already. And it's just one of those games where it feels like the more you explore, the more you have the map you unlock, and then you look at the map and you're like, wow, I really haven't been anywhere yet.
Oh, great. That's kind of like when I played Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, it's just like that, and I would say even bigger than that, which is crazy. But it's been really great because I've been just enjoying just rolling through this sort of 1500s feudal Japan, and like you get to play as Yasuke, who's sort of the big samurai guy. He's like a tank, and I actually find him less interesting to play as because he's meant to be like a brawler, so he could just kind of chop through people, right?
Yeah, don't they say he's kind of like the modern Assassin's Creeds, and then the other character is
very much
the
like
originals?
That. Yeah, and I'm playing as the shinobi girl named Naue, and she's freaking fantastic. She's full on stealth, has like a grapple hook. It really reminds me of like the early days of Tenchu.
Oh yeah,
those kind of games where you're kind of just like prowling around, like hidden in the shadows and whatnot.
You use the hell out of that grapple hook in that game.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been loving this game so far. I think whenever a lot of people went up to the price, maybe it goes down to like $25, more people will like it. But it's a really great Assassin's Creed game. It's been having me hooked the entire time, and like I've been doing nothing but bounties, and there's more like leagues to kill because then I'm finding characters say like, hey, like this faction here is causing problems. Can you go hunt them too? It's like, oh my god, like I'm going over Japan, and then there's still areas I haven't even been to yet. Like I'm only in Act 2. I don't even know how big the game is. So it's been a really great time. It's full on samurai goodness. I'd say so far it's still not as good as Ghost of Tsushima because I think the combat in Tsushima is way better than this, just from as far as parrying and just how it feels,
It's like I'd say two different things because like Ghost of Tsushima, they want you to be out there becoming this legendary like fighter and striking fear, whereas Assassin's Creed has always been about stealth and stay hidden.
And the stealth works. I'm saying like even when you play as Yasuke, who's supposed to be the brawler, sometimes the combat is just it doesn't really work when you're fighting multiple enemies. With Ghost of Tsushima, like I would fight on 5-6 enemies, and the parry system worked where you could just fully samurai your way through there, right?
You felt like Spider-Man or Batman in those recent games.
Whereas this with the blocking and parrying, it's a little bit too slow, so you can't parry every single thing that hits you.
That was always my issue from like Assassin's Creed Origins on, I could not get into their combat.
It's fine when it's like one, maybe on two, like 1 versus 2 at best. But when there's 3 or 4 because you've accidentally lured them, like that's to just restart or escape because there's no point.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it either way. It's a really, really solid game, and the story is really great. It has me hooked all the way through. There's some really great lore bits. It's just like I said, Deuce, like I'm all about samurais and like feudal Japan, so it's like just my bread and butter.
I mean, Assassin's Creed has always been known to throw in real historical things in amongst their like supernatural type of stuff. Did they do that with this one too, with Japan's history?
So you're finding all kinds of lore bits on Japan's history, like stuff, there's things on their economy. Like there's all these little bits and pieces. Like you find these temples and there's these knowledge points there, which also level you up. But also when you find, like a codex piece, it'll give you like this extensive tidbit on a warlord or something like that. So there's also that layer to it too, where you just get lost in that, which I really appreciate because I know the story is just, it's historical fantasy in a sense.
Yeah.
But all the bits and pieces you find on the history of Japan is just super fun to look into too.
Like, I think Assassin's Creed is one of the few series where I tend to read almost every lore bit that I get because like you'll collect it and then it goes away into your inventory and you don't even think about it in most games. But I would actually like find a spot where I'm safe, pause, and then go and read everything because some of it is true and you're like, oh, I never knew that. There were some parts in AC Rogue, like right at the beginning, there's that giant earthquake you're escaping from and everything, and that earthquake really happened. Of course, in the game, they blame it on you, like the Templars versus the Assassins.
Yeah.
But no, that earthquake really happened, and I was, all of a sudden, I got sidetracked. I had the game on, but I was sitting there scrolling through Wikipedia reading about this historical event.
It's funny, because in my mind, you could almost say, like, well, it's fun, like Assassin's Creed sort of like, maybe that's what actually happened, and what we're reading is sort of the revised history.
Yeah,
right? Like that's the kind of silly gimmick I like to tie to that. But it's always great, when you see something that happens in the game, you're like, oh, this has some sort of historical significance. It's just a truth that's a little bit bent.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's been a great time. I think I'm going to see it through. I don't know how long it's going to be because there's a lot of great stuff coming out as well. Yeah. But such is life.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Since we've been off the air here, is the big Switch 2 announcement.
Yeah, that they finally revealed that. I think it looks great. I know there's a lot of controversy around price, which part of it is justified, and it could get worse.
Yeah,
due to some clowns we have running the country.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, hold on, let's hold off on pre-orders because we may want to jack this up."
Yeah, it might go up even further. So it'll be interesting because right now it's set at $450 for the base console, $500 for the Mario Kart bundle. Mario Kart, the game itself, is reportedly about $80 digital, so Nintendo's testing that, which is crazy.
Wait, it won't be $80 physical?
It's physical. Well, first the rumors started that physical is gonna be $90, and then they said that's not the case.
Okay.
And I believe it should be $80 for physical as well, but at least digital, since a lot of people buy digital, it's definitely gonna be $80.
The I don't know how true this is, but the thing that caught my eye and gave it the stink eye is they said there's gonna be a Tears of the Kingdom edition, like Switch 2 edition, that'll be $80. And you're like, that game is how old already? Just because it's going to be a little bit upgraded for Switch 2, you say $80?
Well, it's just like when they do any kind of those deluxe editions on a new console, it's going to be full price.
Yeah.
But also, they will have upgrades like PS5 does and Xbox does. What the price is, people are estimating it's going to be like $10 to $20. I don't know. And there's also something, I don't know if it's confirmed, but they said if you have an active Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack subscription, it's included with those too. Those upgrades for like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. I don't know if that's 100% confirmed. I think that'd be great if they did, because it would be just another piece to add on to.
It would be incentive to go into do their online thing.
Exactly.
More so.
Yeah. So I'm excited for the Switch 2, but I'm a little timid about it because it could get more expensive than it is, and it's like $450 is pricey, but I mean the Steam Deck. You can argue what's worth it to you, right? But Steam Deck, is around $400 anyway. It's just a matter of that's just what things cost now, and like.
$450 is still cheaper than what Xbox and PlayStation 5, right?
Yeah, the base PS5 is $500, but again, like you could probably find it for $450 pretty often. So it's really just like, do you want a PS5 because you're not going to get Switch 2 power, PS5 power out of Switch 2, but you're getting Nintendo games too. So I think most people are already made up their minds, right? Because you're not going to, if you're going to spend on one console, it might likely be a Switch 2, which is fine.
Switch 2 also fully backwards compatible with Switch 1. So
yeah,
at least there's that.
There's that, and then they said there's 100 and something games that don't really work, but it's just stuff that there's like some Capcom stuff. It's a lot of stuff that isn't a huge deal, but I guess it's still like 99% of Switch games are compatible, which is fine.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited. I might pre-order one, But again, they've delayed pre-orders because of this whole tariff issue with the idiot running the country. And we'll see where that lands, because it could be, it's $450 now. It could be $550 for all we know. Who the hell knows? And at that point, that's like, yeah, I'm just going to wait, because I don't think any handheld is really worth $500, $600, and especially when
not a Nintendo system.
Well, especially when you know that it was $450 like a week ago, right?
Yeah.
That's the worst of it. It's like you announced it at $450, and now it could be way more. Well, it's like, I know I could get it for $450 at some point,
Yep.
So we'll see. But now, more than ever, see, I think it's a good time to get some secret agent goodness with 007. All right, Juicy. So I'm going to be leaning on you quite a bit because, like we mentioned earlier, it's sort of the James Bond encyclopedia of sorts here. So I only know, I've seen like more of the modern movies. I think everything since Goldeneye and like a handful of the previous movies. But Bond does have quite a rich history. I think there's 27 movies right now, 26?
25 official ones, and then 2 kind of off to the side. 2
off to the side. Okay, so we'll call it 27. And this series does have a long history as books as well, which is really where it started. It started with Ian Fleming, who worked for Britain's Naval Intelligence Division during World War II, and he wrote his first Bond novel at 44. So never say never as far as starting too late. He was 44 years old in 1952 when he first wrote Casino Royale. Have you read any of the books, Stussy?
Yeah, I've read about the first 3: Casino, Live and Let Die, and Moonraker.
Okay, so you read. That's almost most of what he wrote, because he wrote like 11 or 12 books. I think, right? Yeah,
and it's interesting to see, like, the books are really not like the movies, and in fact, Moonraker barely goes into space, and it's also crazy to read about how torn up Bond gets in these books. You're like, how is he still going? It's like John McClane at the end of Die Hard. You're just like, how is he still functioning?
Well, I get the impression that because Ian Fleming, he wrote this, he had the idea during the war, and I know a lot of James Bond's sort of background history kind of originated from some of the things he saw in his service, right?
Yeah, I want to say he knew a guy that did like secret agenty type things, so he just sort of made it even more fantastical and put it in the books.
Yeah, exactly. So he probably made it like this really action-packed but spy thriller kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he mentions to his friends that he wanted to write a spy novel, and again, like much of Bond's background was rooted in, from his service and as also his career as a journalist, which I didn't know he was a journalist previous to this either. He had started writing Casino Royale in 1952 at his house he built in Jamaica, which I thought was appropriately named Goldeneye. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Did you know that before?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I read about this like, wow, that's pretty badass. And Operation Goldeneye, this is something that Ian Fleming actually formed. It was a plan during World War II, or an operation that was formed in World War II, where they were trying to ensure that UK was able to communicate with Gibraltar if Spain joined Axis powers, which I find truly amazing that this guy who wrote Bond was that deeply rooted in Operation World War II.
He was definitely in it. That's why it was so good on a technical level in these books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense, because I mean, there's no better history than true personal history that you've experienced. Perhaps write something like this, right? Casino Royale ended up being a huge success, and then Fleming wrote 11 Bond novels and 2 collections of short stories right before he died in '64. So really, like, it's pretty crazy that Bond has this long legacy since 1952, and he really only existed, sort of in Ian Fleming's case, as far as like the books, for 12 years. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and 1964 was only, I want to say, Goldfinger, like the 3rd movie. Mm-hmm. So Ian Fleming didn't even get to see too much of his visions come to the screen. Yeah, so that's a great way to thread this through. But the first movie was released in 1962. It was Dr. No. I've seen this one because we did a Hollywood View Guys podcast about James Bond. Oh, yeah. And I watched this one, and it's fun because I'd never seen Dr. No before. And I realized how much Austin Powers was satirizing Dr. No, like, to a T. I was like, holy crap, like, this is Austin Powers. This is where he took everything. I know you were getting, you wanted to go in order, but like, when you get to about You Only Live Twice, that's also another big source of the Austin Powers, especially the Dr. Evil look. It's really great. So it just made Austin Powers even more funny for the fact that now I can
I fully understood the references.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize it was that blatantly ripped off, but it's great. So they made a ton of Bond movies. Dr. No was the first one in 1962 when producers Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman purchased film rights to his novels. And then 16 movies were released between 1962 and 1989. So the breakdown was 6 releases between 1962 and 1969, 5 releases between 1971 and 1979, and then 5 more between 1981 and 1989. That's like an MCU schedule, more or less. That's a lot of movies in like what is that, like 15 years?
Yeah, growing up, I didn't even realize that the first 4 movies were every year.
Yeah, they were annual. I had no idea either. Because by the time when I saw like the older Bond movies, I was probably like, 10, 11 years old. And I assumed there's so many because, like they're old movies. So I thought they'd been released for so long,
And then even after that, they slowed down to every other year.
Yeah, which is still quite a bit. Like I always complain about how many movies come out now as far as like sequels and whatever, but they were doing it back then all the same. It didn't matter whether it was 1970s or 2000s. Like, it's just the nature of the business sometimes.
And now look at like when you want a sequel or something like the last Spider-Verse or something.
Oh god!
And it's been what, half a decade or more?
It's about to be by the time it releases. Yeah, they just announced it, so it'd be about almost 5-6 years. That's crazy.
These Bond movies weren't even sequels to each other. They were just individual stories.
Yeah. So the last movie in sort of the early series was License to Kill, which came out in 1989. And that kind of led to this hiatus for quite a while because of some legal disputes going on. I don't know what the root of it was. And so ultimately, 1995 would start the modern era of Bond, which is what we're most familiar with Pierce Brosnan in playing James Bond in Goldeneye.
I think that was around the time that United Artists was going up for sale and MGM and some other things were trying to buy them. I think MGM ended up with them totally.
Oh, I see.
And then for some reason, I can't remember, but like Timothy Dalton was going to come back. I mean, he was scheduled to be for more than just 2 movies. And then things kept drawing out. And then I think it got to a point where they were like, well, we always wanted Pierce Brosnan. Let's just kind of wait out his contract and then grab Pierce Brosnan when we can.
Yeah, and I think if I read right, was Timothy Dalton the last one? So was it? He was also in the Duel, right?
Yeah,
the Genesis game. Yeah, so I read that was technically his last appearance as Bond, which I thought was really funny. That was in a random Genesis game that came out a couple of years after the fact. Yeah. So the most recent movie that came out was in 2021 with No Time to Die, a movie that I thought was absolutely fantastic with Daniel Craig, who I think is a freaking amazing Bond. When he started with Casino Royale, it was sort of a modern reboot. And all the movies have really been fantastic. Like, Quantum of Solace isn't great, but it's still not a terrible movie. It's just not a particularly great Bond movie.
I consider it DLC to Casino Royale.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like a full sequel or a full Bond movie to me. I don't know why.
You just tack it on at the end and you're like, okay, they're one.
Yeah. And what was the one after that? Was it Skyfall?
Skyfall was next. Yeah.
Skyfall was it really was the shit. I love that movie. Mm-hmm. So for our purposes today, we're going to be talking about a lot of the games. We're kind of go through the early era, which is 1982 with Shaken But Not Stirred. So a lot of these games, Ducey, we just have no familiarity with because these are all released on different computer systems or Ataris. And it's just, these are totally out of our periphery. We were just not old enough to play these.
I've never even seen them in like game shops and old-timey places.
Yeah, like these are, I imagine these are pretty niche as far as collectors, you know? But for me, like these were totally lost on me until I had to dig up and be like, oh, there's quite a few of them, and they're all just not particularly great, but I also can't fault them because they're from the 1980s. They are what they are. So the first one was Shaken But Not Stirred. This was only released in the UK. This is a really basic text adventure game for the ZX Spectrum. It's the ZX Spectrum, which I have no familiarity with. It's one of the best-selling computers in the UK. It was also released in the US, but it's interesting how much I hear about the ZX Spectrum when British people are talking about games like retro games. Like it's crazy. Like that was like almost like their master system or big equivalent system, right? We've looked up videos on all these. I think you kind of looked through them, Juicy, right? So it's like they're hard to describe because they're super basic games. They're not really involved. Like they have a loose story connected to them.
It's funny. Like I don't think I would ever enjoy a text adventure game.
Me neither.
But then some of these other ones that are on this list, I was watching gameplay of them and I was trying to put myself into a position where, like, okay, 84, that's even before I was born, so I can't wrap my head around that. But when I was younger and I sort of fell in love with Bond, if I could, like, sort of transpose that into the era of these games, I'm sure I would have really enjoyed these games, too.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter how basic they were, I'm like, well, this little car sprite looks like the Lotus car. That's awesome. I'm Bond.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's for us when we record anything on this podcast, we have a frame of reference for when we were younger, or whatever the case was. So we have that nostalgia naturally. So I think that already kind of changes our bias in some regards, even though we're trying to be objective for how it holds up, in modern times.
Oh yeah, they don't hold up.
Yeah, exactly, right. So most of them don't. There's a lot of fringe cases you could say do, right? But these games, especially when we have no familiarity with them, like it's hard to say, like, yeah, would I have enjoyed this back then? I'm sure, because you want to play James Bond, like that's the only way you could. Yeah. But looking at them now, like they're just super basic. They're not terrible. They're old.
They have some ideas on these that kind of translate into more of the modern ones. Like, what is it? James Bond 007 was that the one that's based on 4 different movies?
Yeah.
And like later on, we'll learn at the very end, 007 Legends tried to do the same thing.
Exactly. It tries to retell a set of Bond stories, and they're cool ideas. I think they were great. But yeah, James Bond 007, we'll get to that one real quick. That one was released in 1984 for the Atari 2600 and 5200, the Sega SG-1000, which I think that's just the Master System. ColecoVision, Commodore 64. This one is it's a side-scrolling shooter. It looks kind of cool for what it is, right?
Actually, the SG-1000 was before the Master System.
Was this what?
It's a weird looking. It's like all white plastic and stuff.
Okay, I always get those confused because I thought that's what it was called in Japan or something. But this one was a side-scrolling shooter. This was the first worldwide 007 game because, again, Shaken But Not Sure was UK only. It has 4 levels that are loosely based on the Bond movies, like Ducey said. The movies they cover here are Diamonds Are Forever, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Is Only. So it's pretty cool. Like, it's just an amalgamation of 4 Bond things that are broken up across different levels. The next one is A View to a Kill, released in 1985 for the Amstrad CPC, which is a personal computer, again, like in the UK.
Whoa.
Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, even the MSX got a version. And they also made a text version of this game, which is just a converted text adventure. I can't imagine, like...
For DOS and Apple II, oh my God, I could see that. Yeah. I could see classrolls having that.
Can you imagine, like, you're looking at this, because they call it the computer game, A View to a Kill, the computer game, and that's a side-scrolling action game. It's just, again, like a generic side-scrolling action shooter. Like, there's not a whole lot to say there. And it looks like Pitfall, and it has, 3 sections inspired by the movie. Imagine, like, your buddy has that version, and you have to deal with the DOS text version. Like, that's what you're getting, right?
I saw gameplay of this one too. I was impressed with like one of the last bosses is Mayday, and she actually looked good for the graphical capabilities of these old systems.
These, it's super limited, but they tried their best. Really, like, there's only so much you could do with these things. The next one here we have is the Living Daylights. It was released in 1987 on the Amstrad CPC, Atari, Commodore 64. Basically everything that was released on the last one. This is a run and gun shooter that's based on the movie. From what I saw, it looks like...
run and gun is on the loosest sense of the term.
Yeah, it's a loose term, but it looks... I try to say it's like a light gun shooter because what it is, it's sort of like... did you ever play The Punisher on Nintendo or... Not even Hogan's Alley, actually, but it's like you're a stationary figure and you have a cursor you're aiming left and right on the screen. That's what this is. It's sort of like a light-gun shooter with a cursor. So again,
I've played games similar to that. Not The Punisher, but I played.
Let's say Terminator 2, the arcade game.
Yes,
but think if you saw like John Connor's
Avatar.
On
the console where you don't have a gun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what it looked like to me. So again, it looked like it was kind of fun, but it really just looked like kind of an auto-scroller that I'm sure only has so much depth, The ZX Spectrum had a 007 action pack, which I thought was really cool. This one did include a light gun. It also had these cassette tapes that had the plot rewritten, and it was narrated by Desmond Llewellyn, and he narrates them as Q, which I thought was really fun. Like, imagine putting these cassettes in your player, and you hear Q sort of tell you the story of the game. I thought that was kind of a cool gimmick for what it was.
Do you have to, like, time that? Like,
no, I think it's just like an extra thing, right? It's just,
okay.
I'd be surprised. It's like, play level 2, hit play. You
got to hit pause and then play at the same time.
So you get that portable player.
Yeah.
The next one here is James Bond: Live and Let Die, 1988. This is on the Amiga, Atari, and again, these are basically just every system that they were released before, just sort of a new version of them. This one is a racing shooting game that gives Bond a speedboat. This one actually looks like Spy Hunter, except the boat goes like 2 miles an hour from what I saw.
Yeah.
And it actually started as a game called Aqua Blast, and the publisher thought that the gameplay looked like an action scene in Bond, and that's when they just transformed it to a James Bond game. So this really isn't a James Bond game to begin with.
That is, that boat scene is only literally one scene of the movie.
It's probably like some guy at the publisher like, wait a minute, that reminds me of Bond. Like, can you do something like that? Like, did you see this movie?
He's got a boat, there's a boat, we're golden.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. The next one is 007 License to Kill from 1989, again on basically the same systems. This one is a top-down vertical shooter. It's a little bit isometric. It reminds me of like a Atari Warriors or Smash TV. So this one actually looked kind of cool. This one follows the plot to the movie to some extent. I really didn't get too far into it as far as the videos.
This is one where that guy I saw on YouTube doing the retrospectives, he did this game and like it's 6 levels. The first 3 are all before the title sequence of the movie.
Oh my god! So it's like you didn't even get to the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And then
for half the game,
2 of the levels are you've seen License to Kill, right? You watched that one.
I did.
Yeah.
So that had some really great scenes too.
2 of the levels are when he's in the water and the drug plane is trying to take off, and so you're trying to catch the plane for 2 whole levels. And then the last level is finally when like they have the oil tanker chase on the highway.
I was gonna ask if they had the tanker chase, yeah, because I loved in that movie that I caught it when he shoots James Bond's like under the semi or something like that, and he shoots at like the gas tank in there, and he does like 3 pings, and it's like it sounds like the Bond jingle with the tone of that. I was like, did you guys catch that? And like, no, and I just laughed so hard. I was like, that's so stupid, but it's so freaking great. It's like you have to really listen to it to catch that, you know.
But this game is top down, so you don't get to see the most awesome part where he pops a wheelie with a tanker.
That's right. Yeah, that was a really fun movie. That was a good time. Yeah. The next one is James Bond: The Spy Who Loved Me. This was released in 1990. Again, on basically all those same computer systems. This one looks, again, a lot like Spy Hunter, and Bond drives the Wet Nelly, which is a modified Lotus Esprit, which I thought was kind of cool. So I actually would love a Spy Hunter type Bond game if it was released like on the Nintendo or something like that. Like I actually think that format would work.
I mean, we'll talk about it way later in this episode, the 007 racing game. But if they had adjusted that to be just behind the car, like you said, Spy Hunter style, that makes total sense.
It would have been great. Yeah, that'll be a fun one to talk about when we get to that. And then the final in the pre-era, as I'm calling it, is Operation Stealth, also known as James Bond 007, The Stealth Affair. This was released on the Amiga, the Atari ST PC, MS-DOS. This was released with the Bond license in the US only, and that's kind of where it was. I think it was like in Europe, and I don't know if it was released in Japan, but it's called Operation Stealth. So again, this is loosely a Bond game, and also in the sense that the James Bond works for the US here. He works for the CIA instead of MI6, which is an interesting change.
He's on loan, quote unquote.
Yeah, and it's a point-and-click style LucasArts game. And in the foreign versions, the character you play as is John Glames. I don't know what that's about.
Which I mean, because Operation Stealth came out first, I want to say, and it was always going to be this John Glames person.
Yes.
But I don't get why the US didn't get that version, because he's a US agent, and then England should have had the James Bond version.
Yeah, I'm sure some licensing nonsense, but it's still really funny to consider that, like, you would think James Bond would be in Europe at least, and they released here as Operation Stealth, but it was the opposite. So it's pretty funny. I don't have much familiarity with this, but the story here is that he was James Bond / John Glames is assigned to locate a high-tech stealth plane in Latin America. So I don't know how good this one is. It looked okay. It just looked like a kind of a basic point-and-click game,
which I would want.
Yeah,
as a kid, I did enjoy the occasional point-and-click ones, especially the Monkey Island series. And I think they said this is just as obscure as some of those games.
I would think so. Yeah. I imagine, like, even these, I try to see if like maybe the Internet Archive had them just to play, and I couldn't really find them. I'm sure there's avenues I could have dug deeper to find them, but I didn't want to look. I wasn't going to look too deep for it. So to me, like, these are definitely hard to attain because they're based on old computer systems. Like, it wasn't really. There's no Nintendo version emulator or anything, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd be curious to play a few just for fun, just to get some some sort of context for the time, but. Maybe I'll dig around. We'll play them and see what they are. I imagine this couple years we'll get a few mileage out of, like the Spy Hunter ones.
At the rate of their releases now, they should really go back and remake some of these. Like at least the point and click ones. Those are slap a new coat of paint on, and that would be pretty fun.
And the only thing is, I would bet same thing. It's probably a licensing nightmare.
Oh, licensing nightmare for anything Bond.
I mean, yeah, there's no bigger enemy for Bond. There's no billionaire villain than licensing.
I mean, Amazon just got, well, they got all the movie rights only.
I don't know what their rights entail. I just know, I know that I read that they have at least creative control.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So, whatever that means in Amazon terms, we may or may not. But
what it means is a lot of side characters getting TV shows.
I'm sure. It's going to be milked dry is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know what what the chances of releasing the old ones are. I suspect that they just won't bother, and who knows where they'll get them. Like, they probably have to pirate them just like anyone else,
yeah.
right? To compile them, who knows? But it'd be interesting because I think those will eventually get sort of lost to history in time at some point, because they're just, maybe there's some preserving them and whatnot, but there's hard to get to these days.
There's some garage sales out there that might have them.
Yes, yeah. This is really for, I guess, the meat of the episode, because these are the games that we have more familiarity with, also games that released during our era of growing up. And the sort of the next era we'll start here is sort of like the pre-GoldenEye era, which surprisingly didn't have too many Bond games on consoles, more or less. Like that chunk that we just went through were really the bulk of the Bond games in the early 90s, or I should say 80s and the early 90s. And the first James Bond game that was really released that was the James Bond game was based on the animated series called James Bond Jr.
Yeah, not James Bond at all.
Not at all. Yeah, it's James Bond's son. I didn't watch this cartoon
nephew.
growing. Oh, is his nephew?
Yeah,
that's what it was. Okay, they did a little bit of a. Was it like the Indiana Jones cartoon? Was like his nephew there too?
Maybe. Yeah.
I remember.
Or Inspector Gadget had his niece.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
I do love Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, all these main characters never had direct children.
Yeah,
it was always side.
They're like, no, we can't have you being a spy and dad at the same time.
Yeah,
you're not gonna have time. You're gonna be awful. But James Bond Jr., I don't remember watching this much as a kid. I just remember the theme, like I think most people do. It was a really great theme.
I remember catching it every once in a while in the mornings.
Yeah,
and my dad would point out things because he was the Bond fan, and then, they would have some Bond enemies in there, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, that guy is from such and such movie." But like, he didn't watch him. He didn't sit down and watch him with me, and I kind of turned the channel on him every once in a while.
I vaguely recall it being, not very interesting. Like, there's always something else I was watching, and it's just I couldn't get into it. But the theme song is great. Like, that's the thing I remember most about it. These games are not so great though. So they released two. There was one on the NES that came out in 1991. This, I played a little bit of on an emulator. It's kind of like a Metroid game in the sense that you're out to find these missiles and you have to solve these puzzles, these really kind of ugly square puzzles where you have to move squares around to match a pattern that's on the right side of the screen to disarm these missiles. I got through a couple of them. They're tedious because while you're solving the puzzle, you hear this annoying beep sound the entire time, which is just grating and just not great. The controls are really floaty. The jump is kind of awkward and kind of floaty as well. It's not a terrible game. Like, I'm more forgiving of this as an NES game because, it is what it is. But I actually kind of like the format. I just think that the controls and a lot of the mechanics don't make it that great. Have you played the NES one at all, Ducey?
No, I really wanted to because there was coverage of it in a Nintendo Power, and I used that issue for some other game a lot. So I would always flip by the James Bond Jr. one, and even though I wasn't a big fan of the show, the game looked cool based on the maps and everything, and also this puzzle element that you pointed out. For little, like, was it 6 or 7 year old me, that was awesome. I want to solve puzzles on a giant missile.
Yeah, like I think the puzzles they're fine. It's like they're really kind of awkward to shuffle around. Like, they made it purposely obtuse in a sense where you hit A and B, and then you have these lights that light up on the vertical and x-axes, and that's where you move these tiles. So it's not immediately apparent. So you're doing some awkward movement where you have to make sure the top one's highlighted with the side for the row you want to move. And it's just kind of like an unnecessary level of complexity, to solve these. It's not like a slide puzzle. It's an even more annoying slide puzzle. But it's a fine game. Like, it actually looks pretty fine for a Nintendo game. The music's actually kind of, I think I like the music in here. It's not too bad.
Yeah, I still want to track it down because I did find the Super Nintendo version that we'll talk about here, but I realized quickly that was not the version I saw in the magazine, and I was like, ew, get this away.
It's funny because both these games, the Super Nintendo version and Nintendo version, have the same tile screen, so I almost thought when I played the Nintendo one, I thought it was going to be a scaled down Super Nintendo version.
Oh, yeah.
But it ended up being a totally different game that I actually liked better than the Super Nintendo one, which we can talk to now.
Yeah.
This was released in 1992. I think it was like October. I thought the graphics, I played this after I looked up a video. It looked like a generic side-scrolling game.
It looked okay. I mean, it matched the cartoon, which is what we liked to see back then.
Yeah, I think the music's kind of crap for a Super Nintendo game, frankly. Like, it's not grating or awful, but it just feels it doesn't have much depth. Like it almost sounds like an upgraded Nintendo game, but not upgraded. I don't really know how to explain it. It just doesn't sound good.
And I couldn't figure out it kind of seemed like they played the theme song from the show, but in a weird chiptune way.
Yeah, it was really kind of awkward sounding. I also think James Bond Jr.'s sprite is kind of ugly. Like he just looks, he doesn't have very many frames of animation. Again, the controls are kind of wonky. Like you collect these shoes which make you jump higher, so now your jump's even more awkward. You have to punch enemies, which I thought was weird.
Punch and kick.
And then the second level, which I got to, I will give this game credit for having a little bit of variety because there's these shoot 'em up levels that are interspersed throughout. So the second level is a shoot 'em up level, but it has like these Silver Surfer levels of awful hit detection and collision detection where you'll hit basically everything's a dead zone. So like you hit tree branch, you're dead. You're in this biplane kind of thing that can drop missiles and also shoots forward. And the enemies die in one hit, so it's actually like a fine shoot 'em up that way. But they ruined it by having everything kill you. And so there's times where I was flying through, it's like, what hit me? Like I'm in the furthest point at the top of the screen. There's nothing that could have hit me.
I felt the same way. I was just like, my first thought was, this is Silver Surfer. This is terrible. At least in Silver Surfer, you could see when you hit a wall or something and died immediately. But this one had the weirdest invisible hitboxes.
Yeah.
And then you get a shield, which is cool. You get these like 3 rotating like balls around you.
Which again is like Silver Surfer and also like R-Type or something.
Yeah.
Or Gradius, yeah.
But like all of a sudden, that's when every enemy becomes a sniper and you lose that shield immediately. Mm-hmm. Like you could be dodging pretty well beforehand, but now all of a sudden they can home in on your shield.
Well, and also what makes it even worse is this level is just too long.
Yeah.
Like I sat there, I died a few times because you have a collection of lives and you get a game over. So you have, I think it's like 4 or 5 lives. And I got through, it felt like 4 or 5 sections because there are checkpoints, but there's like, I swear I must have just, I got game over twice at like the 4th checkpoint. So like, this is just way too long for this kind of game.
I feel like I got through at least 3 checkpoints, maybe 4. What's also not helpful is that there's no explanation for this. Like the first level, when you're junior and you're punching and kicking, all you have to do is jump up these 2 platforms, punch one guy, walk to the right, and suddenly you're in this second mission. What the hell kind of first mission was that? Why?
Yeah, it was super basic. I was surprised at how quick it was.
Literally 2 jumps and 1 guy to punch. And I was like, wait, why am I now all of a sudden doing this horrible flying mission?
Yeah. This game reminded me of The Rocketeer for NES and Super Nintendo, where I love the Nintendo game. It's really hard, but again, it's not like a spectacular Nintendo game or anything, but it's totally just fun. It's just fine.
It's a shooter.
It's a shooter, yeah. And then you go to the Super Nintendo one where you expect it to be way better than the Nintendo version, but the Super Nintendo Rocketeer has the first level. It's like this ugly light gun shooter. Oh, the plane race is first. That's right. The plane race is first. Then you have this ugly shoot 'em up, like stationary light gun shooting game, and you have like one of your, I think it's like you're rocketing around the level or something like that. And it's just not fun. It controls like crap, and it's just ugly. So this is what James Bond Jr. reminds me of.
You can see that Super Nintendo tried to do variety in all their games because Nintendo was going to be the basic platformer, jump and shoot thing. And they kind of fumbled on both of those.
They really blew it. So to me, like both these games are stinkers, but I think the NES one is less of a stinker. Like I think I actually would play through more of the NES one because
I still want to track that one down.
Yeah, like I would buy it. Like I would definitely enjoy buying it. The Super Nintendo one, I don't think I would seek out like a complete copy and something like that. That's not the ones I have nostalgia for.
I mean, yeah, I have it, but I was like, okay, it was loose. It was fine.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to have, right? Like it's totally fine, but it's too problematic of a game. It just wasn't very fun. It got to a point where it's like, this could be cool. And it's like, wow, this second level is longer than the first level by like a mile. It's
yes.
Yeah. And the next one we'll talk about was released on the Genesis. This is James Bond 007 The Duel. This is one I actually played as a kid and rented it, and actually owned the copy I rented because they sold it eventually. But this is actually a pretty fun game on the Genesis. This is, like we talked about earlier, this is Timothy Dalton's final appearances Bond, which is interesting that it's not tied to his movie. It's just tied to this random game that was released about 4 years after his last movie.
Yeah.
And this one has an original storyline that included villains like Jaws and Oddjob as bosses. Professor hijacks a satellite launch center on a remote island, and he's taken scientists hostage. And the professor has also created a cloning machine that's recreated some of Bond's greatest villains, which I think is a really funny narrative way to bring back some villains that make no sense.
Yeah.
But I'll take it. It's an okay side-scrolling game. It has a lot of verticality where there's a lot of these ladders. It kind of reminds me of like Rolling Thunder, where a lot of the enemies die in one hit. I don't like that you can sometimes get shot off screen, but perhaps the most egregious thing about this game is that Bond, when he turns, is so slow. So if you go up a ladder and you're pointing the wrong way and you see an enemy, you already got hit, because by the time they gave Bond this weird transition animation of turning from right to left, even though your enemies don't have that same compromise. So you're getting shot guaranteed. You cannot physically move fast enough to respond.
The other problem is when you can easily take out these enemies if you just duck and shoot.
Yes.
They always shoot above you. The problem is if you get hit and you get the knockback, you kind of get stun locked and all of a sudden you can't duck. Mm-hmm. And I thought at first it was my controller was just like not responding too well, but then I realized, no, this is probably the game has some weird lagginess to it.
It does. It did feel really, really kind of clunky and stiff. The jumping was fine. Like I can make jumps, but it also felt like really abrupt because the speed of Bond is kind of slow and they has like this really snappy jump.
Even like front flips.
Yeah. And so I thought that was kind of a cool gimmick. It's cool that he's wearing like his Bond suit, like his tuxedo. But overall, like this game is just pretty mediocre. I wish the controls were better because I actually enjoy it when I'm not having to shoot enemies that I can't respond to shoot with, right? Like it's an okay side-scrolling game. It's kind of cool with the objectives, and I think graphics look pretty nice. Bond looks kind of basic, but you can tell it's Bond.
The levels are pretty open. Well, the level that I played, the first level, is pretty open.
Yeah.
You get to go like the low road or the high road. You have to rescue hostages, which is actually just one woman over and over again. Mm-hmm. The problem I had with it was like the end of the first level, you get the hostages, then you find this bomb, and there's this like ridiculously short timer, and you get stopped by Jaws like right before the end of the level.
Yes, I got to that point.
And I was shooting him a ton, and you could kind of stun lock him, but eventually he'll catch up to you and he'll just toss you off the side of the boat, and you have to swim and hope you catch a ladder, and then you have to climb all the way back up and get back to him, but the timer is still counting down on this bomb. And I was just like, nope, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah. And I hate that. I mean, that was a common thing back then, is where they would add these stupid cheap gimmicks to make the game more difficult, whether it was a timer or throwing you back to like halfway through the level. It's just sort of like artificially lengthening the game, but not in a way that makes you want to play it more. It's just more of an annoyance.
Yeah.
So,
I also noticed I got game over once and I had a continue. I was like, oh, thank God, I'll continue. And then you don't have a second continue. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just these old games, the biggest issue is that they're old games. So it's like they're rooted in some of the most awful design decisions that make it unfun to play. Like James Bond Jr., at least on Super Nintendo, has a password system. I forgot if the Nintendo one has it. I'd imagine the Dual has codes, because I don't remember if it has passwords. I don't think I caught if it had passwords or not. But it really sucks when you have a handful of lives, everything can hit you pretty easily, and then you're having to restart. You have one continue. It's like, well, this is just an endurance at that point. It's like gauntlets.
The Dual might not have any codes or passwords because there's only 4 levels.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Well, I'd imagine it's still, maybe Game Genie or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just give me invincibility.
Yeah. That's all I need. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so now we get into the next big series of games. This is sort of I don't want to call it the modern era because it's like 1997.
Modern for us.
Modern for us. Yeah, it was modern to us at the time.
This was our awakening.
It was. This is the Bond awakening. I like that. Yeah. So this is the huge one. This is the N64 monolith. This is Goldeneye that was released in 1997. This was released 2 years after the movie by Rare. Development started for this around January 1995. It was originally conceived as a rail shooter like Virtual Cop, which would have been really crazy. This very much and very closely follows the plot of the movie, which was a huge thing back then for us.
Wasn't it even... it was considered for the SNES first, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It started way back there, which I can't imagine what that game would have been.
It would have been like a shinier The Duel.
It could have been. It could have had like DKC graphics and who knows. I don't know. We're going to do a massive deep dive for this in a future episode, but we have to talk about this, of course, because it's GoldenEye. This one has 18 main levels. There's a couple of those that do repeat twice, like Surface and Bunker. There's 2 bonus levels that are based on previous movies, Aztec and Egyptian. And the big thing that I love about this game, even before we get to multiplayer, is the different difficulties that all had different objectives depending on those difficulties, which that is a perfect design decision to lengthen the game. Is you're going through the same levels over and over, but you're having to go through them differently because they're different objectives. And that was like the coolest thing ever when I first played this game.
And games, even since then, rarely do this. Like, Perfect Dark did because it was the spiritual successor. But after that, games would throw in objectives, quote unquote, and it would actually just sort of be checkpoints. They were like, get to this and you will automatically complete this objective. Whereas in this game, it was an open world, but it sort of felt like it because you had control over how you wanted to go about and do things. And it was so unique. This was definitely a pioneer in that respect because before this, all first-person shooters were like, shoot everything that moves.
That's really what it was, yeah.
Which, I mean, they still did in this. For being a spy game, you just go in guns blazing.
Yeah, this is still a shooter. Like, there's no real stealth to speak of, which is fine. But, I mean, you can to an extent because, enemies don't have full awareness. So there's times you can whip out your silenced gun and, kill enemies as you go along. There's some instances where you can't, but it's still very much a shooter. But it encourages exploration because, there's no guide markers. There's no, highlighted items or anything like that. You're always looking where your objective is because you have to really kind of, infiltrate the area and find out what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you can do that 3 times over. So, regular agent difficulty is pretty basic. Enemies don't do much damage. And that's when you really can learn the levels because you're naturally going to explore all these levels because, again, you don't know where anything is. So you have to figure everything out. And then in Secret Agent, you might figure out, it's like, oh, wait, I remember seeing that before, and now this is an objective, so I know where to find that, or I might know where to find that.
Yeah.
And that's just, like, freaking brilliant. Like, I really, like you said, I wish more games would use that, because it sucks when a game's sort of idea of lengthening the game is make it more difficult or, give you a few objectives that are, like, lightly changed, like collect 12 instead of 10. When these are a little bit more meaningful, where it's like, you might have to go shoot out all the security cameras on Secret Agent, but you don't have to on regular Agent. And Double O might have something more extensive where it's like, go get this key card and bring it here.
And I feel like with this one, like when you got to Double O, which was hard mode, the enemies were a little more accurate, but they weren't bullet sponges. Like in other games, when you turn up the difficulty, it just means that it's going to take more bullets to kill an enemy.
And also the other big thing here too is that this was, at least for me, one of the earlier games that were that had hit points on enemies, where it's like you could shoot them in the leg and they might react to that, right? You give them a headshot. That's basically guaranteed kill unless they're wearing a helmet or something like that, right? So that also added another little immersion to where it's like you could technically shoot them in the arm to disable them, or at least get their gun out of their hand.
It would slow them down, yeah.
It would slow them down, and that wasn't a thing before this. So that's another level of immersion that is a detail that was definitely new to us back then, and now we might take it for granted, right? But back then it was a pretty mind-blowing thing.
And like I said, like with the objectives, also games going forward didn't seemingly have that much detail when they were shooting enemies. Like even in Halo, the AI was good because they could like learn your tactics and start moving against you, but they all kind of reacted the same no matter how you shot them. Whereas in this one, it was weirdly detailed how they
it was almost randomized.
Like a human.
Yeah, it was almost randomized how they reacted, because you would see different animations. Like you could shoot a room full of enemies and all 3 of them might react differently to how you shot them. Yeah, it's really cool. And of course, there's multiplayer, which we spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on. I mean, I don't know how to encapsulate this without going too deep into it, but 4-player experience, that was really new at the time for us on N64, outside of like Mario Kart and whatnot. But this was like the first-person shooter multiplayer deathmatch experience, because there was like Quake and everything like that on PC. There was Doom, but I never played multiplayer Doom or multiplayer Quake.
No, you needed like internet with crappy connections.
Yeah, and we weren't gonna do LAN parties, so it was just for us at the time we were like 10, 12 years old, where it was just out of our periphery, out of our gaming space. So when you played with all 4 of your friends or all 3 of your friends, there was no other better experience than Goldeneye. It was truly amazing. It holds up. I mean, I'm not saying it holds up, but there's a reason people hold this in high regard, right? It was a huge first-person shooter game on the N64.
Yeah, without this, you would be, well, some games had multi-taps and stuff, but like this really opened the eyes to other makers. Like Xbox suddenly released with 4 ports.
That's true.
And Dreamcast as well. They were like, oh, this might be a thing.
Like, yeah, we could do more than 2.
Yeah.
We could definitely do it, because I mean, multi-taps, yeah, they were just extra hardware for $30-$40. But now they're like, oh, Nintendo did it, we can run with it, which I think is great, because Dreamcast is another one of my favorite systems. There's a lot of 4-player games on there that are really fun too for the same reason.
Yeah.
So Goldeneye, huge, highly influential game for us. One of our favorites of all time. I think, do you see anything you want to say on this before we move on? Because we'll do a deep dive for this. I think it'll be pretty extensive.
I was going to say, like, I'll get into my memories and everything about it on that episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So keep your ears open for that one because that'll be a fun one for sure. The next one is another James Bond game that's near and dear to our hearts. Maybe not so much for others, but this is James Bond 007, released February 1998 on the Game Boy. This was developed by Sapphire, published by Nintendo. The reason I called it out is because Sapphire is a pretty cool developer. They do a lot of Game Boy games. They did the really great Rainbow Six port for Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
So they're not a well-known studio or anything, but they did do some pretty cool games, and I think this is one of their best. And this is just, I think I did put this on my top 10 Game Boy games, right? When we did that list way back. Or?
I don't know if you did. I know I did.
You did?
It was like top 5, I think, for me.
That's what I thought.
And we sort of did a little bit of a deeper dive into that on that episode.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, because I really love this game. This is a top-down adventure game that has puzzles, has melee and gun combat. It's a pretty basic adventure that, to me, it reminded me of Link's Awakening, and that's also what some reviewers are saying as well. You could definitely tell it has sort of that puzzle adventure aspect that Link does, but it's James Bondified.
And even the dungeon look where you walk into a separate building.
That's right.
And you have like 4 directions to go.
Yeah, and even the sprites kind of look similar in Link's Awakening style. This is set up in a level format. There's 11 levels with a bunch of mini games like Baccarat. Is it Baccarat, Ducey? Baccarat. See, I always get confused if you had to pronounce the T or something like that. Some words mess
Probably with me. In Europe you don't, but here, that's right. Here we do. Yeah.
Baccarat and Blackjack, and I think there's a third one. I forgot what the third one is. And there's some enemies like Oddjob and Jaws as bosses in here. The plot revolves around finding Agent 008, and you're visiting locations around the world to stop a Russian general from destroying England, which is always a reasonable cause. Reviews at the time praised the inclusion of the Bond theme, which I thought was funny as a note. I was like, that's cool. I mean, it does sound fine. And they said the gameplay was similar to Link's Awakening. I only note this again because we brought it up on when I talked about this, about how EGM, one of the reviewers was just having a bad day or something because he said just some really dumb crap about this game. He basically said that the action was repetitive, dialogue is ridiculous, clues are overly simplistic, secrets are obscure, what a waste of silicone. And he gave it a 1 out of 10, which I've played thousands of video games in my life, and I can guarantee you that this game is nowhere near a 1 out of 10 on the scale. Like 1 out of 10 is an awful, awful game.
Everything he just said in that, if you look at it one by one, could be said about The Legend of Zelda for Nintendo. It's super
generalized. So the impression I got when I read, because all 3 reviewers kind of gave it mediocre to bad, right? Like it was just like 4s, 3s, whatever. And he gave it a 1. This felt like he played it for 5 minutes and gave some broad stroke generalizations and just gave it a 1. Because in my eyes, this game is fantastic. And also, it sold at least 1 million because it ended up on Player's Choice or Game Boy. So, I think opinions are great, but I'm also like, when it's just blatantly stupid and ignorant like that, I'm like, did you play this game? It's actually really fun.
Yeah, what were you like? Were they saying you better write a review or you're fired? Yeah. And you just crapped this out?
It's like, hey, we need a 4th review to get to print. Can you write something up? So it was really interesting because I think I don't mind critics and whatnot. I think that some are, it's one thing to be objective and critical, but it's another thing to just be totally dismissive and ignorant, which is what this review is.
My feelings on it. We've discussed it before outside of the podcast and everything, but like this combined with what we found out last episode.
So you just say
where like the fatigue of the releases of Street Fighter started clouding their objectivity, which is dumb. Like go in, if you're going to be a professional reviewer, go in objectively. And then also you're going to have this big long article, maybe throw in some of your opinions. Yeah. But don't make that based on the score.
Or at least if you're going to have these kinds of opinions about it, have a little bit more, like cite some examples of why it's repetitive, right? Yeah, that's the thing. Like this game isn't remarkable. It's not a 10 out of 10. I don't even want to say it's an 8 out of 10. Like maybe it's 7.5 out of 10.
Oh yeah, it's a Game Boy game.
It's a totally solid Game Boy game. I think it's really fun for what it is. Yeah, it's not going to have any brainbuster puzzles, but it does feel like Bond in some instances because there are some instances of stealth. You're traveling around the world. You're kind of feeling like an espionage agent. Like a lot of the puzzles are like, hey, I need this, this vase from the other guy or whatever. Yeah. And you go 2 screens down, grab the vase, bring it back.
Well, like at this point, the only 2 Bond games I've played are Goldeneye and this, and this felt like the Bond in the movies where he didn't just rely on a gun.
Yes.
Like there was a part where you have to get into the casino, but you need a little a fake pass. So you have to go to this guy who's in prison and give him, first you have to give him a clue that you know his brother and that you'll like mess up his brother if he doesn't help you, which is kind of rough for Bond. And then you give him like a piece of paper or something and he makes you the fake ID and then you get in. I'm like, that's awesome. In Goldeneye, you probably would have just shot the guard and gone in the building.
Yeah, and I think that's why that reviewer in EG, I keep going back to him because it was just, like I said, it's just so crazy to see a 1 out of 10 on this. But it feels like he didn't even get to that point, right? Because I feel like if you gave this game more of a chance, you'd see that it does open up a little bit more. And again, like, it's a Game Boy game. I really can't expect too much from it. Like, it is just sort of a ripoff of Link's Awakening, but it's a really solid ripoff. It's really good. So if you're out there and you want to play it, like, I'd say it's worth seeking out to try it out for a little bit. I bought it because I love this game. Like, I never heard of it till you owned it. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I used your Nintendo Power Guide to get through it too. I remember all that, you know?
And in your save file is still on my cart.
That's right. As we discovered, yeah, you sent me a picture which I thought was really great, which is now what, like 27 years old?
Yep.
It's really crazy.
That's a strong battery.
Yeah. So James Bond 007 on the Game Boy, I think it's a fantastic adventure game for what it is. The next one we're covering is Tomorrow Never Dies, released November 1999 on the PS1. This is based on the 1997 movie of the same name. This is developed by Black Ops Entertainment and co-published by EA and MGM Interactive. So this game is kind of interesting because there was a Tomorrow Never Dies, The Mission Continues. It was actually shown on the, it was a trailer that was shown on the Tomorrow Never Dies VHS, which I don't recall at all. I'm not even sure if I was seen that. But the idea of this game was that it was going to start after the end of the movie, and it was narrated by Q, I think it was. I forgot who narrated it. And it was supposed to release in the fall of 1998 by MGM Interactive, which was before EA got involved. So it's interesting that they were going to have a totally different game released under a different publishing studio because they hadn't have the rights to EA yet. But whatever case happened with this game ended up just getting delayed, and released almost 2 years or a year later after the fact.
It was interesting to me that the Rare was asked to develop a Tomorrow Never Dies based on their success with GoldenEye, and they said no. And then all of a sudden it fell to EA while they did Perfect Dark, which was also very much like GoldenEye.
Yeah. And I remember it was really weird to see that we were kind of expecting like another thing to GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And we got this, which we'll get into, but I just remember being like, I don't know if this is going to be as good as GoldenEye, you know, like I'm a little timid on this.
Yeah.
So development started this in 1987, but here's why they canceled is that they did some focus group testing. I guess people didn't like that it started after the movie, which is kind of weird. I think, you know, that was like the thing with Enter the Matrix, right? Where it's like interspersed between two movies. Maybe we weren't ready for that in 1997. They're like, no, I want what's in the movie. You know, I don't want what's after it.
Yeah. I mean, not until Quantum of Solace did Bond ever get an actual sequel.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, no, Bond usually doesn't need a sequel.
It makes sense. Like I don't think it would have been good anyway. I think it would have been stronger if it stuck to its source material instead of trying to make something up. I think it wouldn't have worked. Because then also it would have felt kind of silly, like you're playing everything after Tomorrow Never Dies, you know? So the game was delayed multiple times, and they are going to include multiplayer, but that was scrapped. I do remember reading about that back then, but I was also not expecting much on the PS1 for multiplayer to begin with either.
I was going to say, with what we got, I'm okay with it not being there.
So with all these delays, it's kind of crazy that the game ended up releasing the same month as the new Bond movie, The World Is Not Enough. So we'll get into The World Is Not Enough, you know, shortly after this, but that game was also released long after the movie as well.
It's weird. I never made that connection back then.
I didn't either.
Because also, like, GoldenEye is 2 years after the movie came out.
I think that's why, is because I assumed, you know, some games were released the same time as the movie, but then there were some we'd get their iteration way after the fact. So that was kind of like a normalized thing for me back then, it feels like.
And GoldenEye was released the same year as Tomorrow Never Dies. And then Tomorrow Never Dies was released the same as World Is Not Enough. It was a weird, like shift that was going on, but it seemed okay in my head because I wasn't really paying attention to games coming out with the movie. I just wanted the game of the movie that I had seen. Exactly.
I think it was more like we'd see ads or previews and like, all right, well, I'm excited for it. Like, it doesn't matter how long after the fact. Like, it's based on something I like. You know?
Yeah.
So this is a third-person game. I remember borrowing this from you back then, Deucey, because I remember you had like finished it and I got it after you and I finished it. I remember it being not terribly difficult. Like, it was just totally fine. I remember one of the gimmicks they kept showing off was the skiing levels, which I thought was kind of fun, right?
Or vehicles in general.
Or the vehicle, which I thought was really cool because GoldenEye only had like the tank level, right? I don't think it really had anything else. So that's the thing is, what GoldenEye did was it obviously influenced other games to be like, okay, well, you could do this with Bond now. So I think that's what was great about GoldenEye is that it influenced other games to say, we can include more of the gadgetry, more of the espionage, more of the spy stuff. And I think that's what Tomorrow Never Dies tried to do. Like, it tried to be closer to the movie in that respect. And I remember enjoying this one, but it was just inevitable that it was going to get compared to GoldenEye.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like a terrible game. It's just, again, like it's totally average, enjoyable for the time.
Average PS1, if you want to quantify that, like take that for what it is. But for the movie itself, I always thought it was more spy-like than GoldenEye. Mm-hmm. And then I thought this game kind of fit along those lines too. You got to use more gadgets and do more things as Bond. Like I said, drive the BMW, shoot the missiles, all that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed this game. I also enjoyed that it played out like the movie, where like the gun barrel comes across, then you do a couple levels, and then the actual theme song plays from Sheryl Crow. And then you go back into the game and start playing it like it's the movie. And then in between the missions, they would put in, because this is PlayStation 1, they would put in actual scenes from the movie. And I was like, this is quote unquote immersive.
Yeah. As hit or miss as movie-based games or games based on movies are, one thing I love about this era is the fact that everyone really loved the gimmick of having a level clip from the movie.
Yeah.
Level. Like that was really great because you got to relive some of the greatest scenes from the movie that you enjoyed.
And like, then played the rest of it.
Yeah, now it looks kind of cheesy because it's just like you have these ugly PS1 graphics, which again they're dated now. By the time they were great, but you have them ugly now, and you're seeing these really grainy, almost like less than DVD level because these are on CDs, clips interspersed between levels. It's really fun. It's just kind of charming in its own way. All right, so the next set of games we'll get into these. I really enjoy one of these versions here, Ducey. So we're getting to The World Is Not Enough for the N64. This was released October 2000. So there are two versions of World Is Not Enough that were covered. One is the N64 one, and there's the PS1 version, which is by a totally different developer. And these are actually very different games, despite having the same name and based on the same movie. So the N64 one was developed by Eurocom, and they actually developed James Bond Jr. way back in the day, which I thought was a cool connection.
Didn't they do some Duke Nukems?
I think they did. They've done a lot of games in that era. Like they did a lot of ports. They did a lot of original games. Like Eurocom's, in my eyes, a pretty big developer for the time.
The way this is like different, these two, it harkens back to like Super Nintendo versus Genesis.
Exactly what that's like. Yeah. And one version is definitely better than the other. So in this, much like the movie, Bond is out to stop a terrorist from triggering a nuclear meltdown. Its plot was to increase petroleum prices. I don't remember the whole plot was not abused. I remember the guy feel pain, right?
They were, the oil heiress was going to ruin all these other oil lines, and then only her family was going to do it.
It had Denise Richards and I think Sophie Marceau was her name, right? Yeah. I remember enjoying that movie quite a bit back then. I know it's not like a great Bond movie now, but for the time I enjoyed it a lot. Like I don't know where I'd put in the tier list, but
it's like
it was fine.
For Brosnan, I'd say it's second or third.
Yes, I think I definitely liked it better than Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah. So the N64 version has 14 missions over 3 difficulties that follow the plot of the movie. There's a bunch of, they've ramped up the variety in this game compared to GoldenEye. Like GoldenEye, you couldn't jump. You had some gadgets. One thing I really love about this game is that it really ramps up all the gadgets. Like you have a grapple hook, you have like your credit card scanner thing, you have the pen that gets you through security, like it disables security.
You can, there's like a data pad, like if there's a little keypad on the wall,
you can hack it.
A scrambler thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of stuff to add to this game. Like there's X-ray vision, there's tranq darts. You can use your pistol with or without silencer, which I thought was really cool because in GoldenEye it was just you would pick up either version, right? And here you can actually see him twist on the silencer, which I thought was really great because that's also tied to the character as well.
That blew my mind when I could first do that on this one.
In this game, there's no health recovery items, which is interesting. It's the only thing you get is body armor,
which is similar to GoldenEye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think I really loved this game. Like I loved it when we played it back then. I think we were just transitioning like PS2 and whatnot, so we didn't play it as much as GoldenEye. Mm-hmm. But I played it earlier this week, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it because it's still a pretty gorgeous Nintendo 64 game. I'd say it runs pretty well given, it's N64 again.
Yeah.
The graphics are a little bit fuzzy, but at the same time, like the graphics are pretty high res for an N64 game. Like the engine they used for this, I don't know what it was. I forget if it was a modified version they did before, but it was built to take advantage of the N64 so that they could have these high fidelity graphics with a really good frame rate.
It also, it uses the expansion pack because when I played it, it recognized that it was in there.
Yes. There's a high color mode, I think they call it.
And I just remember really liking this. But I didn't like it as much as GoldenEye back then. Mm-hmm. But now, if I compared strictly those two, I'm like, this really did sort of improve on GoldenEye with a lot of the stuff. You really felt more like Bond, like you said, with all the gadgets and everything. The enemy, animations weren't as high level as Rare.
Yes, absolutely.
And they were a little bit cheap because like they could start shooting you through a door or around a corner before you even knew they were there.
Yeah, and this game, it's interesting. Well, I don't know about the default control scheme because I like to use sort of a pseudo dual stick setup with the N64, right, where the C buttons are your movements, the left stick is your
looking
around, and it sucks because it's not sensitive enough on the N64, so aiming kind of feels chunky, but there is a really generous auto aim in here at least, so it's like you kind of point in the general direction of the enemy.
As long as you're close enough too. I noticed sometimes when the guy was way down the hall, I was still missing him by a hair.
Yeah, you do have to be within range. And I really love the animations in this game. Like there's some really great things when he reloads the gun and cocks it, or like when you're putting the silencer on, like they really... You can see more of Bond's hands now because I think really the biggest fault I could put on this game is the fact that it had to follow up GoldenEye. That's what sucks about it. It's like I think a lot of people, I don't want to say dismiss this, but they played it, didn't like it as much as GoldenEye, and just kind of like left as it was. But it's interesting. There's also load times in this game, which I thought was kind of fun. Really brief ones.
Crazy for an N64.
A card game. Yeah. But it did keep the format of GoldenEye, where it has like these different objectives. I don't know if they changed on difficulty though.
I think
I can't recall. I thought they did because I remember that was the big thing is they tried to keep this much like GoldenEye, but better.
I also couldn't remember if I ever beat this fully on 00 Agent. I was trying to think back to it. But I do know that like it's also more of a shooter than the PS1 version. So it does feel a lot more like GoldenEye in that respect too. Mm-hmm. But then when I recently played it, oh my God, it's hard.
It's pretty hard. And
I was only on Secret Agent, and I got to the second mission where you're in the MI6 headquarters, and just trying to escort M was a pain in the ass. It was worse than escorting Natalia back in the day.
Yeah. It's I played Secret Agent and then went down to Agent, which was obviously a lot more tolerable because enemies die quicker and whatnot.
Yeah.
But any escort mission is awful. I mean, that's just in general. But it's worse when you're getting blasted from every direction and everything takes so much damage. Mm-hmm. But overall, I actually really like this game. And also, one thing I kind of forgot about was the cutscenes. Like, it actually has some voice acting.
Yeah.
It actually has some cinematic cutscenes interspersed throughout the missions, which, again, GoldenEye really didn't have much of that. It was very infrequent.
Not even just the cutscenes, but, like, there's talking during the mission. Mm-hmm. Like, when you walk into a room and M is already giving you orders or something like that. It was, like I said, very well done. It was a step up from GoldenEye.
I agree. Like, I think... I don't know what the perception of this game is nowadays compared to GoldenEye, right? But to me, even back then, like it just felt like this was being compared to GoldenEye, which is inevitable. And a lot of people just played it, thought it was okay, and just didn't really appreciate what it did do because it did do a lot of great things.
The other problem with this, though, is it comes out in 2000, but like shortly thereafter, Perfect Dark comes out.
That's true. Yeah, that's right.
Is the true successor to GoldenEye and did multiplayer and everything better, and
a much better game. That's absolutely true.
And it had gadgets and a lot of spy and stealth in that one, and you were just like, oh, this one fell short of that.
I think you're probably right then, because it would make sense that this came out, it made whatever splash it did, and then Perfect Dark just took all the attention because that is naturally just a better game overall, more robust, more modes. It's more everything.
This one even tried in their multiplayer. They tried to put in bots and everything so that you could all have 4 players or more, and then, like I said, Perfect Dark came out and said, we'll do you one better.
Yeah, literally, we'll double the bots, pretty much, yeah. The multiplayer, I do remember enjoying it a little bit here, because, again, I thought the weapon variety was really nice. The sounds are really good. I think the gun sounds pretty great.
The character selection was cool, too. They brought back classic enemies from other Bond films.
Yeah. So this, it's a really great game. I think the N64 one is really good. If you're going to get one of the two, we'll get to the PS1 in a minute here, but the N64 one, I don't know if I want to say it's underrated. It feels underrated to me, but it's a damn great Bond game that I think just doesn't get enough love. All right, so we're coming down to the last 2 games we're covering here for this episode. So the first one is the PS1 version of World Is Not Enough. This came out 1 month after the N64 one in November 2000. This was by Black Ops Entertainment, who did Tomorrow Never Dies, and they actually modified their Tomorrow Never Dies engine into a first-person experience, which is pretty wild. Like sometimes you hear about first person and third person. This did no. We're going to transition from third to first.
They were like, "Oh, we're sorry. You guys wanted first person. We'll change that now."
We see that's the hot thing right now. Yeah. Multiplayer was planned for this as well, but it was scrapped out of caution after considering production time and potential impacts to the final game. And again, I don't think it would have helped at all to have multiplayer in this game.
I mean, PlayStation's only had 2 controller ports, so
on top of that too, so in 2-player, I imagine there probably would be bots. I think it would kill the PS1 if it had something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this also has 11 levels with 2 difficulties, and it followed the movie a little bit less closely than the N64 one did. But this is the one where I was saying like Terminal Eyes, where it also interspersed clips from the movie, which I thought was cool. Like you jump out the window and it shows Bond jumping out the window in the movie, right? So it tries to thread those together in a narrative way while you're playing. I played this and I was not a big fan of it. Like it's just a really shallow first-person shooting game, not really much spy, you know?
It's funny. I remember vividly getting this game because I want to say, like, if I kept my grades up, I would usually get a game for a good report card or something like that. So I had already had The World's Not Enough on N64. I probably got that on my own. And then this one came out a little bit later, and I was like, I was asking my parents, "Ooh, I want this one, as my reward or whatever." But also, I want this strategy guide because it covers both games. And I was really trying to convince them. They're like, "These are 2 different games.
Yeah.
Like, I know I already have this one, but it's different." And
same but different.
Yeah, I ended up getting them both, and I actually liked, for a while there, I liked this one more because
really?
Because it felt more like Bond, or it felt like you were a spy and you weren't relying on your guns. Like I said, the N64 one felt like Goldeneye, where you were shooting a lot.
This one does have a lot of gadgets. Like I'm not saying this is an awful game either. I'm just saying that it's not as, at least for me, it wasn't as spy heavy as I thought. Like I showed you, I could rush through the first level in a minute and 50 seconds because the AI is not smart here. The shooting is really generous with auto aim and whatnot, but there are gadgets. Like it does do its best to try to be like a spy game.
Yeah, there were a lot more gadgets in this. You had to sneak more, and there was even a section where you had to play cards, and I was like, yeah, this is Bond. This is probably the first time where I got to play in a casino as Bond. So, yeah, to me, it felt a little better. But now, looking back on them, I'm like, no, N64 was awesome.
Yeah, and also the controls in the PS1 version are not great either because you can't use analog, at least I could figure out, or at least you can't remap them. So you have the D-pad, which moves, and an L2 and R2, you're strafe. So you're using the D-pad to like go forward and turn, which you can kind of get in a rhythm for too. It's just not comfortable, right?
It's not what our brains are used to.
It's not. It was what my brain was used to in 1997 or 2000, but not in 2025. So again, like it's not a terrible game. It's just totally mediocre compared to the N64 because playing them back to back, I was like, oh yeah, like there's no contest. Like the PS1 version is a totally competent PS1 first-person spy shooter.
Yeah.
But between the 2 versions, the N64 one just is more robust. It's more well designed. Like it just feels more of like a Bond, or what I want from a Bond game.
They had to do more work, like you said. The cutscenes and stuff were all in-game stuff, whereas PlayStation could rely on the movie.
Yeah, that's right. I had the luxury of the FMV cutscenes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there was a Game Boy Color version. I just want to note that of The World's Not Enough. I didn't play this one. I didn't look into too much into it, but it was released in 2001, so it was even later than these other releases. And it was released by a totally different studio, and it's an adventure game with 8 levels that also follows the plot of the movie. From what I saw, it has another isometric view, and it actually reminds me of Metal Gear NES. And I think that's also what most reviewers point out is like Metal Gear Solid Game Boy Color exists. Like that's why would you want to play this version? This is not. It's a totally mediocre game. It's totally fine, but Metal Gear exists, so why bother? Right?
I've seen gameplay on this, and it's a slower, clunkier Metal Gear.
Yes, that's what it looked like to me too. Yeah, which it's fine. Like it's a Game Boy Color game. It is what it is. All right, Deucey, the final game we're covering is one that was actually released 10 days after the PS1 version. It's 007 Racing. So The World's Not Enough came out November 17th, 2000, and this one came out November 27th. And this was done by Technics, a very interesting name. They've done a ton of racing games. Like they had a NASCAR license at one time, like they were doing them in 2011. They did a Le Mans 24 Hours. They did some awful games I remember, like Big Mother Truckers, which... I remember that when I worked at the video store, and they just looked like a cheapo budget, goofy game. They also did Pimp My Ride. I don't know if you remember seeing that one.
Yeah, I actually have. I think Triple Jump has played it.
Have you? Yeah.
Oh my God.
I stalked that at Circuit City. I saw it all the time. I was like, who would buy this? I don't think I really sold it. So they have some history with a lot of racing games. 007 Racing has 12 missions with different objectives like Driver. You could definitely tell that the moment you play this that it seems to be inspired by Driver. Like there's, one of the missions is, rescue the girl and then take out the helicopter with your Stinger missile and then ramp off this thing into a helicopter and explodes. Or it reminds me very much like Stuntman as well, like on PS2.
Oh, yeah.
That same gimmick where you might have an open world thing that's sort of like, this game really reminds me of like Twisted Metal with Drivers, what it is. Like there's some instances where you're in a little arena and you're shooting down cars and whatnot. There's pickups littered all around, just like Twisted Metal. And there's other things where it says like, go collect, these 10 or 12 transmitters and then ramp off this dock into the water because they're about to explode or something like that.
Yeah, the transmitter one, they put an arrow above you that is very much like Crazy Taxi or Driver, like you said.
Exactly. The developer worked with MGM on a new plot for this movie, or this game, it does have a plot. It does have a plot, some sort of plot's tucked in there. A high-ranking European diplomat and businessman wants to hijack a shipment of NATO weapons and smuggle terrorists inside cars that come out of an assembly plant. So this is all this big old ruse to stick to your cars.
They're smuggling the terrorists inside the cars?
Yes.
Straight off
shipping containers.
Straight off of the assembly line?
That's what they're saying. That's what the story... Apparently AGM okayed this. I don't know. And the gimmick here is that there's a series of cars that are featured in here. There's the Aston Martin DB5, the BMW Z3, BMW Z8, the 750IL, the Lotus Esprit S1, and Xenia Onatop's Ferrari F355 is also an enemy in one of the levels here.
And also the level I played earlier, you were in a Nissan Skyline.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about because I can't name specific Bond cars in movies like you could, but I was like, that doesn't look like a Bond car.
That was never a Bond car.
That looks like a pedestrian car he maybe hijacked or commandeered. I have no idea. You played this for the first time today, as I did earlier this week, because I've had it for a while, and it was like, 10 or $15. The reviews at the time, did say that it was a pretty ugly game. The general sentiment is like, it's fun if you know what to expect, which I think is the best way you could describe this game. They said that some missions were well designed, and the voice acting, including John Cleese, was actually really good. And overall, like, it's just unpolished with rough controls, and it could be worse, which I think, again, like, that summarizes this game pretty well.
Yeah, the only thing that I could think of for this was like, I really wanted it back then, but now playing it, I was like, okay, it's a game that I have no idea why it's called 007 Racing.
Yeah, there's no racing I could find so far, unless later on in the game you do that. I don't know.
Because actually I would have liked a racing game where you just races the Bond cars with their weapons and you shoot your friends as you're racing around a track or something.
Yeah.
It didn't need to have a story or a spy mission.
It sucks because this game came out like in late 2000 and, I have my Dreamcast. We're transitioning to PS2. I remember reading this game wasn't great. And we were talking about before we recorded how I said like, I could see $40 or $50 this game not being worth it because that's what it was. I'm pretty sure it launched at $40 or $50. And I was like, I just don't want this. Like all the reviews I read across magazines, the internet was just like saying like, it's not great. It is ugly. Like the cars themselves look pretty good. I think they're rendered well, but the environments are really just, they're PS1 ugly and they're actually kind of inexcusable at this point. Like this feels like a game that should have been released in 96, 97.
Yeah. When I was asking you when it came out, because like you also only steer with the D-pad.
Yes, that's right.
I was like, wait a minute. What game is this? Why is this a 2000 like era game? But like I said, the cars do look pretty good. And when it first came out, I didn't even pay attention to the reviews because I was just such a huge Bond fan. And I was like, yes, I want cars. I want the car racing aspect of it and the Twisted Metal aspect of it. But then I played some of it today and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, maybe those reviews weren't too far off.
Yeah, it very much reminded me of Die Hard 3 from the Die Hard trilogy game. But when I saw that there was multiplayer, I thought, okay, that could be a saving grace because it would just be combat like Twisted Metal. Yeah,
from what I read here, because we can get to try the multiplayer, but it does have a head-to-head car fight, which I think works, is great. If this game had just been more of like a car combat game, or at least maybe more polished. I think unpolished is a great word to use for this game.
Yeah.
I think we're fine. But two-player Twisted Metal, I think that's totally fine. There's also a pass the bomb mode that's like hot potato, where I guess you collide with each other to pass the bomb, right? And the last person explodes. Yeah. And there's also some customizability where I guess certain weapons can be turned off, and there's a handful of different levels to play. So they try, like they, I feel like this is more of a budget game than anything else. Like I remember seeing back then, like it got as low as like $10, which I think would have been fine. I think I paid 15 for my copy, within last year.
I would still seek this out.
I think it's fine.
As
like
part of a Bond collection.
Yeah, like the AI is overly aggressive. It's not a great looking game, which some PS1 games age better than others. This is not one of them. But overall, like it's again, if you know what to expect, it's a totally fine time. Like it can be kind of annoying at times because you might miss an objective and you could technically complete the level, but it'll still make you restart because you didn't complete the objective.
Or like I totally biffed it off that ramp and somehow the cutscene still played.
Yeah, you like tumbled and did some awkward hamming it up or something there. Yeah, it was really weird. But overall, like, I really wish this was delayed to be a PS2 game because I think if they had waited a full year and shifted to a PS2...
Oh, it would have been very much like Spy Hunter on PS2.
Yeah, it could have been like Spy Hunter or Stuntman. I think it would have been a really badass game at that point because I would love a game like this on a more modern system that wasn't the PS1. I think it would have been a great Spy Hunter ripoff.
I wonder if, like, we'll find out in our second episode or second part of this when the next generation of games started including cars more. I wonder if they looked at this and thought, oh, we can take some of that, or if they were like, well, this is what we won't do.
Yeah. It's probably a little bit of, a little bit of both. Yeah. Where it's like some things were kind of cool in here. Like I did think the objective structure was really cool. Mm-hmm. It's just, again, saying unpolished because that's what this game is, but it just doesn't feel right. Like it just doesn't feel like it's like they didn't have enough time to make this or something because it just feels clunky, awkward to play. The controls don't feel great. Like you're doing these high-speed chases in these small arenas, and you have like the most stiffest turn ever. And even the quick turn doesn't help you either that much.
Yeah, I was almost utilizing that okay, and then at the same time I wasn't because these enemies are just constantly on you.
They just ram you. They have no other AI other than they just ram you, which sucks because your missiles also hurt you. So unless you're backing up and hitting them, because as far as I could tell, you can't shoot missiles behind you. No. That would help a lot. It would actually make the levels a lot easier. But, it has problems is what it is. But again, $10-15 back in the day, I think would have been fine. $50, I don't think I would suggest this at all. But it's fine. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, I guess I could say, right? All right, Ducey. Well, we've made it to the end of our first episode for James Bond games. I think this was a really robust episode considering all the games we covered. Yeah. We covered quite 20 years of Bond games from like 1982. Hope you all
enjoyed the history lesson.
Yeah, we made it in good time too. Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah. So if you want to reach out to us, anyone who's still listening with us here, reach out to us at email at legiongamingpod@gmail.com, or more notably on Instagram, where I post a bunch of videos, collection stuff, et cetera, at Legion Gaming Podcast. And we're also at BlueSky. You can find us there at Legion Gaming Pod at .bluesky.social, whatever the hell the whole string is. Just look up Legion Gaming Pod, you'll find us. BlueSky has like the ugliest naming convention.
This has inspired me to play some of the older games again, especially some of the ones for the next generation, and maybe even get back into some of the movies.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we always do that. We're some sort of we'll get some weird bug in our ear. I'm like, oh, I suddenly feel like playing this game and watching these movies related to this game or something like that. So,
yeah, you gotta continue your trek.
I know. I got like 2 movies in, and not including the modern ones, and I have to go through all the Bond movies. Yeah,
you stopped right at Goldfinger.
I know.
Everybody's favorite.
That's my project I have to get through. I'm always like scrolling through and like, what do I want to watch? And it's like, you watch the same crap or a show or something like that, and it's like I could just sit there and watch a movie and play, Xenoblade on the Switch or something like that. Yeah. Do you see any final words for our friends out there in Bondland or going to do their spy thriller business?
Just James Bond will return.
And you might be
Bond. James Bond.
You need